show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
The electricity here in Columbia, well, has been buzzing loudly all weekend.
Passion of the crowd in Williams-Brice Stadium is second to none.
And the rave breaks out in Columbia.
It is good!
Gamecock fans, welcome home.
See how it goes, but we'll be ready to go.
It's time to root.
Let's go, Carolina!
It's gone! Touchdown! What a hit! He baked it in! Can you believe it? Gamecocks have won this game!
Here are your hosts, JC Sherbert.
Oh, watch him celebrate now!
Phil Molinax.
My wife doesn't like hanging around losing.
And Jamie Bradford.
I'm going to tell him, you look like you joined Duck Dynasty.
All right, greetings and good morning. Welcome aboard and welcome home. Inside the Gamecocks, the show, live from the Signorama Studios, the preferred sign partner of the University of South Carolina, and built by one of the nation's best builders, the BarnDominiumCo.com. The Barndo Co. as they're called, where you can build your dream home for as low as $160 per square foot if you live in the Carolinas, in Georgia, or in Tennessee. Michael Flint will join us to lead off hour number 2. South Carolina is on the practice field for the first time in preseason camp, and we'll get to all of that. Realignment. There are some big recruiting situations going on this weekend involving the Gamecocks, but we're not going to wait any longer because we have to wait a year to be able to talk to this fine gentleman every year. It is the one and only Phil Steele, who has been kind enough to give us some of his time this morning to talk about the University of South Carolina, the SEC, and the rest. So, Phil, we'll get you in here. You're also being joined by Phil Molinax, a fellow Phil, and JC Sherbert, owner of thebigspur.com. But we really appreciate your time, and how you doing?
You know, I am doing great. How about you gentlemen this morning?
Well, you know, we always do fine when your magazine comes out. That's the ticket, right, Phil?
I appreciate that very much. We put a lot of work in that. You know, 7 months of work goes into this magazine each and every year.
You know, you used to, when I was on ESPN in Charleston, I had you on my show, I think 3 or 4 straight years, and I asked you this question every year, and I love asking the question because I love people getting your response. When do you start on the following season's magazine?
Yeah, we start the Sunday after Thanksgiving. So as soon as some team seasons is complete, we start doing the post-spring postseason right through. Now I've got a setup where I got 12 TVs in front of me. I've watched every game all season long. I've lived every game. But then you go back and reread every single article that was written about the team during the course of the year, and then you write the positions. Each position, the 3 questions I want is what kind of shape were they heading into last year? What happened last year? What kind of shape are they heading into this year? The second right-through process is actually pre-spring. You get the rosters from the schools. You get all this transfer portal stuff. And then the third is actually after talking to the head coaches. And this year I talked to 123 of the 133 head coaches, spent about an hour with each one, going over every player on the team, every position, gets my pages in line. But it's basically a 7-month process. It starts the Sunday after Thanksgiving in November. And this year ended on June the 7th. We sent the final page of the press.
That's unbelievable. You can head to philsteele.com to order yours. And Phil, Barnes & Noble, and where else?
Barnes & Noble and Books A Million are the exclusive dealers this year. The only 2 places that have it. Used to be everywhere, but this year exclusively Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, or as you mentioned, philsteele.com.
All right, well, we'll jump right in. I know JC and Phil both have plenty of questions, and I've got plenty of questions, and we'll start with the Gamecocks because that's who we cover here on Inside the Gamecocks of the show, and then we'll branch out and let you fill us in from there. You said you spoke with 123 of 133 head coaches. I'm assuming Shane Beamer was one of them. What did you learn from him?
the first thing you learn from Shane Beamer is he's doing a great job developing this team. And, as I mentioned in the conversation, both of the or each of the 3 years I've talked to him, well, the last 2 years, I should say, he's a guy that overachieves every year. You go back to that first year, I believe the over-under win total was 3.5 on South Carolina, and they end up winning 7 games. And last year, they're 6-4. They're going to lose their final 2 games to Tennessee and Clemson, right? It's going to be a 6-6 season, go to a bowl game, and then they knock off Tennessee and Clemson. So I like the way he's building the team. He feels real good about the defensive line this year. They lost a couple of key players, but he likes that unit a lot. He feels real good about the quarterback position, naturally, especially if Spencer Rattler plays like he did at the end of the year. And then you just have to marvel at the special teams play that South Carolina has. It's the best special teams in the country last year, and I rated the best special teams coming into the season.
Wow. Yeah, they were actually talking about that yesterday as well. There's only a couple of spots they really need to fill. However, you have the neatest metrics and some of the coolest sections of your magazine that exist on the planet when it comes to talking about any sport, let alone just football. One of them, though, this year may not be in favor of South Carolina. It's called the upset meter. Tell us about that and where you think the Gamecocks are in the 23 meter.
Yeah, the upset meter, South Carolina pulled 3 net upsets last year, and generally that means teams are good. They have a weaker record the next year. The research is up there on philsteele.com right now on that blog for the net upset thing. And then also last year they were minus 80 yards per game in the SEC play. So my YPG factor says that also says weaker record for next year. So those are 2 things pointing down for South Carolina, as is the experience level. Last year, they were number 43 on my experience chart. This year, they dropped to number 82, just 6 starters back on offense, 4 on defense. So all those factors are a concern for South Carolina this year.
I think one of the things that people ask the question, and this is a very difficult job that you have, Phil, because you have the transfer portal now. And I know that the last few years you've had to adjust, as you just mentioned a minute ago, when you do your previews for all these football programs. But how many times, like when you look at those type numbers and you say, well, they're only returning X number of starters, do you also have to consider that maybe they're bringing starters out of the portal? Does that factor in your mind?
Yeah, and I actually did factor that into the magazine in this respect. If the transfer portal guy that they acquired was a starter at a FBS school last year, came in and won the job in the spring, I count him as a returning starter. If he didn't win the job in the spring, I don't count him as a returning starter. There was one school last year, a group of 5 school, that brought in 8 Power 5 transfers. Only one of them actually played, and it was only part-time. So not every transfer portal guy makes it, but if they did come in the spring and won the starting job, I count them as a returning starter because they have a full year's experience under their belt.
Phil, where do you rank Spencer Rattler in terms of SEC quarterbacks? There's been a lot of SEC quarterback rankings lists that have come out over the summer, and a lot of them have caused a lot of discussion. Where do you fall on the whole? Where do all these guys stack up within the league?
It's interesting. I didn't put Spencer Rattler in my all-SEC team at the top of there. I got Jaden Daniels, KJ Jefferson, Joe Milton, and Will Rogers, all guys that should have put up big-time numbers this year. But I actually have South Carolina's quarterback unit ranked number 7 in the country, and part of that is their backup quarterback, and Luke Doty, who, of course, has starting experience. That's a nice thing to fall back on. But with Spencer Rattler, let's go back to last season. I mean, he was, let's face it, below average the first 4 games. He had 2 touchdown passes, 5 interceptions. But what he did at the end of the year was remarkable. And it wasn't like he was playing your Vanderbilts and things like that in the final 3 games. They were playing Tennessee, number 5 in the country, Clemson, number 7 in the country, and Notre Dame, which has a really good defense, and he put up big-time stats. I like the way he progressed as the season went on, and I would think this year he's got the potential to be one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. And as mentioned, I think when you look at the quarterback position, you do have to factor in the backups, and having a guy like Luke Doty back there is a big plus, as is true freshman Lenoris Sellers. He's a big kid that can run, and it wouldn't surprise me to see him on the field a little bit this year.
Where do you rank?
Sure. Speaking of, I was just going to say, Phil, speaking of freshmen, how tough is it, especially with, like coaches like Shane Beamer, who have said that this year there's going to be a lot of freshmen, starting even in the 2 deep. How hard is it for you when you're putting together this magazine and making your projections to try to account for incoming freshmen at the high school level?
Yeah, you always give a little more credence to the guys that were in for the spring. I think that's a big time plus if they're in for the spring to able to acclimate. Take a guy like Nicholas Harbor, though, the true freshman. I mean, this guy is 6'6", 230. He could start on the defensive line. He could start pretty much anywhere he wants. He's super talented. He's big. He can run. He has range. And so I plugged him as a starter. I know a coach is never going to tell me this guy's a starter, but I'm just looking at the talent level this guy has, and I'm like, he will find a way to be on the field this year. So a lot of it is not necessarily what the coach tells you who's starting, but is my personal feel on it.
What about Juice Wells? Where do you rank him as a wide receiver?
Oh, he's clearly one of the best in the SEC. And, it was interesting. You look at the Wells situation from last year. I mean, he was an honorable mention, or he was a second-team FCS All-American. And this struck me this year, guys. I talked to, I had mentioned 123 of the 133 head coaches, and it was probably about the 8th, 9th coach I was talking to. I'm like, wow, that's another FCS transfer that came in and started right away. Wow, that's another one that came in. So I started asking the coaches. Then I would start to throw my commentary by the time I got to 65, 70, and it was like, you know what? It seems like these FCS transfers, as long as they were productive on the FCS level, they're generally better because they've got a couple of years under their belt now. They're bigger, stronger, faster than they were as a high school player, which is why they were underrated. They come in with a chip on their shoulder. They're grateful for being there, and it seemed like 75 to 80% of them produced. That's exactly what Wells did last year. He stepped in, did extremely well at the spot, and I'm looking for a huge year for him, especially if Rattler's playing like he did at the end of last year. Wells is going to be his top target. I would think he'll easily top 1,000 yards this year.
Well, that'd be good news for South Carolina. On the defensive side of the football, Phil, one of the position groups that's been scrutinized in Columbia for quite some time is the linebacking core, but they feel pretty good about where they are there. And then at the safety, at the third level of the defense, the safeties, Nicky Minwari, a freshman All-American last year, DQ Smith, both returning starters. Evaluate those position groups and where you have them.
Yeah, and it's unusual when you look at the linebackers because South Carolina loses its starters at the linebacker position. So you say, okay, they're less experienced, but none of those guys they lost were all SEC last year. And that's one thing I look at. And then you look at the guys that are coming in. They probably have better ability to cover, run, rush the passer. I think it's an upgrade in athletic talent at the linebacker position. So despite losing all three starters or both starters from last year, I think the linebackers are actually upgraded in talent. And then the secondary, as you mentioned, you got two great safeties. You also have Dial at cornerback. That is going to be one of the better defensive secondaries in the country, I feel, this year. I've got them rated number 22 in my secondaries in the country.
Phil Steele, the great Phil Steele, we should say. PhilSteele.com. If you haven't ordered your magazine yet, you're late. Way late. It's time to get it and read up because football is right around the corner. Guys, do either one of you have anything else on South Carolina or before we head to the rest of the SEC?
No, I think that he just about covered everything there. I think that's a good take on it.
One thing I'd like to point out about South Carolina this year, and one of the reasons I picked them third in the East, they get both Florida and Kentucky at home this year. So take care of business at home. I think a really big game is October 21st at Missouri. If they can go into Missouri and come out of there with a win, then this team's very capable of overachieving on those metrics that we talked about, the experience, the upset thing, and actually getting back to last year's 8 wins or even perhaps 9. And the one common thread I have with Shane Beamer is this guy gets more out of the team than what you expect coming into the year. And that's always a sign of a great coach.
Well, you hit the nail on the head, and the fact that you've got them third, that's kind of where we were going next. Georgia clearly is everybody's pick to not only win the East, but a lot of them's pick to win the league. But staying with the rest of the SEC East, evaluate that. You've got the Gamecocks third, but fill in the gaps from there and maybe a little tidbit on why you have those teams where they are.
Yeah, and I think when you look at Tennessee, they're a dangerous team. If anybody's going to get past Georgia, I feel in the East, it would be Tennessee. They get them at home the second last game of the season. Joe Milton looked great when he took over for Hendon Hooker as a starter. Can he do that all season long? I guess my biggest question mark with Tennessee is probably Hendon Hooker, and can he hit a high percentage passes? And what about the interceptions? Hooker only threw 2 interceptions all year last year. I don't know if Milton's going to be able to duplicate that, but I like the receiving core with Squirrel White, Brew McCoy. They had in Dante Thornton from Oregon, who I think is going to be one of the SEC newcomers of the year, perhaps. And defensively, I think they're stronger than they were last year. They're a very dangerous team in the East, and I rate them number 2. South Carolina, as I mentioned, they get the teams in question at home, take care of business at home, and they finish 3rd. And then I've got Kentucky there, and Kentucky loses their quarterback, an NFL draft pick in Will Levis, but I actually think they're in better shape at quarterback for 2 reasons. Devin Leary, I like him a lot, coming over from NC State, and that big blue line that they have on the offensive line, it wasn't the big blue line last year. They only averaged 3.3 yards per carry, gave up 47 sacks. This year, the offensive line is vastly upgraded. They probably open up the season 5-1. They'll be favored in 5 of their first 6 games, and that'll give them a lot of confidence heading into the second half of the year. So they are a strong team and a capable contender for that number 3 spot. And then Florida, the thing is, talking to Billy Napier, they don't have a very good experience. They're only number 109. They weren't great last year. They missed out, or they finished with a losing record. They bring in Graham Mertz, a quarterback, who I was very questionable on because it seems like Billy Napier's offense always does better with a mobile quarterback. Graham Mertz is not that. However, talking to Coach Napier, I mentioned to him that their over-under win total in Vegas was 5.5, and he seemed very pleased by that. He feels they're way under the radar and that they're going to surprise a lot of folks this year. So keep your eyes on Florida because Coach Napier seemed very confident in them. Now, Missouri had a good defense last year, no doubt. They only gave up 25.2 points per game, big-time improvement. I think they still have a good defense this year. They should be better at the quarterback position with Brady Cook now having a year under his belt. They also add in Jake Garcia. Look for Luther Burden to take a bigger share of the offense. They have the potential to get there, but I still picked them 6. And then with Vanderbilt, I think Clark Lee did an amazing job last year getting those wins over Kentucky and Florida. I would count on them to get another win or 2 in the SEC this year. They have 15 starters back, and they're going to I think they're an improved team in Lee's second year, or third year, I should say, and he surprised me a little bit last year.
Just out of curiosity, I've got to ask you about Vandy. What in your mind are the chances that they actually could open the season 4-0 before hosting the Kentucky Wildcats? They've got games against Hawaii, Alabama A&M, at Wake Forest, and at UNLV.
Yeah, I've got them favored in 3 of the games. So I definitely think at least 3-1 to open up the season. The one game that I would put a question mark on would be Wake Forest on the road there. I've got them a touchdown underdog. Wake's always dangerous. And Wake Forest last year came into Vanderbilt and came out of there with a nice 20-point win. I think Wake's going to be better than expected. This is Dave Clawson's best situation where they're way under the radar as opposed to last year when they were getting a lot of press clippings early in the year. So I think that Wake Forest game is going to be a tough out on the road, but I'd see them at least 3-1. And you're right, they are 1 upset away from being 4-0.
That's a very manageable schedule to begin the year. Kentucky, Missouri, and Florida follow that. How about on the West, Phil? I mentioned Bama earlier. There's one team I didn't say, though, and that is LSU. The Tigers are on the prowl looking for an SEC title.
Yeah, and I think everybody this year is talking about the 2 teams contending for the SEC West. I'm going to say there's 3 teams that are right there contending for the West. First of all, Alabama. I'm not going to be the guy that doesn't pick Nick Saban to not make the playoff this year. So I put Bama in the playoff. This is his best situation as usual, where, he's only won 1 national title when preseason number 1. He's been preseason number 1 the last 2 years. Last time he wasn't preseason number 1 was 2020, 13-0. Nick Saban's lost it, all that stuff. They go 13-0. They've got the talent. I know they have a quarterback question mark with Buckner, Milroe, Simpson, but all 3 of those guys very capable of having a big-time season no matter who wins the job. And the talent levels there. Plus, they get LSU and Texas both at home. Now, with LSU, there's no doubt Brian Kelly's team has improved over last year. Last year, he had all these transfers coming in. They struggled early in the season. They had overcome that 17-point deficit to Auburn. They got blown out by Tennessee. They lost to Florida State, but then they seemed to get better. And Jalen Daniels progressed as the season went on. This year, they are a much better team. They've got 15 returning starters coming back. They've got Perkins and Wingo on the defense. They've got explosive running backs and receivers. And the offensive line is better than last year as well. But I'm also going to throw Texas A&M into this for this reason. A&M's been recruiting equal to Alabama, equal to LSU, equal to Ohio State the last 5 years under Jimbo Fisher. Now, last year when I talked to Coach Fisher and was going over the team with them, they were only number 124 in my experience chart. So they were one of the 10 least experienced teams in the country. And he would wrap up most positions like the offensive line. He said, Phil, I think we're going to have one of the best offensive lines in the country next year. He would always say next year on it. Well, guess what? It is next year. And this team is much more experienced. They're now number 14 on my experience chart, a jump of 110 spots. They've got 10 starters back on offense, 10 on defense. Last year, they lost their starting wide receiver, Aniyah Smith, week 4. They used 3 different starting quarterbacks due to injury, and Connor Wegman came in late as a freshman and played well down the stretch. Their offensive line and defense were both banged up. Well, this year, and by the way, even last year in that 5-7 season, a lot of close losses. They beat LSU 38-23. They're at Alabama's 2-yard line at the end of the game, throwing in the end zone down by 4 points with a chance to win. So they showed they could play with the big boys last year, even in a 5-7 season. I think with Petrino coming in, taking away the offensive play calling duties, that'll fit well with Fisher. And I think A&M's one of the top 3 teams in the West and a legitimate contender for the West title.
That's a fascinating statement. And Phil, when you go look at their schedule, is it safe to say that October 7th and October 14th are going to make or break Texas A&M in 2023? For those listening to this, they host the Alabama Crimson Tide, and the following week they'll head to Knoxville.
Yeah, and that right there is a tough situation for A&M because Tennessee's off a bye. So, I mean, what better situation for the Volunteers to win that game, catching A&M off of giving a full effort against Bama at home. And I do feel they have a shot at the upset and then having to go on the road. They also have to go down the road to LSU and play them on the road in Death Valley on the final game of the season. But I think they're a legitimate contender. Those 2 road games kept me from calling for them to win the West this year. But I think they have the opportunities.
Your champion to win the SEC is who?
Oh, I'm going way out on a limb here, guys. I'm picking Georgia.
How about this? Credibility at line.
Yeah, let me ask this a little differently. How difficult was it to pick Georgia, or did you at least have some consideration for the West champion?
Yeah, I definitely had some consideration. You go back to last year with Georgia, go back to that Missouri game. You're watching that thing in the fourth quarter. You're like, oh, my God, Georgia's going to lose this game. They come back and win. And then everybody's talking about the three-peat for Georgia right now. But if Ohio State's field goal goes through the uprights, our defending national champ is Ohio State, not even Georgia. So I thought they got outplayed by Ohio State in that game. It's difficult to three-peat. Everybody's gunning for them. But the things I like about Georgia this year is their experience level on defense. Yeah, they lose 5 starters off the defensive side of the ball, but guess what? Last year they lost 9. They lose a first-round draft pick off the defensive line. Hey, last year they lost 3 first-round draft picks off the defensive line. Going over the team with the coaching staff, they feel that they're more experienced defensively, felt better about the positions. And then offensively, they got my number 1 rated offensive line, number 4 set of receivers. The running backs are number 6. And I think Carson Beck at the end of the year, if you're looking for a long shot Heisman Trophy winner, look at Carson Beck. He's 6'4", 215. It's his 4th year in the system. He's got this supporting talent. They're going to be a double-digit favorite in their first 10 games, so he could put up big-time stats. And if you're the number 1 quarterback putting up big stats for the number 1 team, you're a Heisman contender. Keep your eyes on Carson Beck. I think he's something like 20-1 right now, so that might be a good long shot pick.
I'm with you. I think Carson Beck's going to be really good, and he has, with the addition of. What do you think about the additions of Ra Thomas and Dominic Lovett at receiver? Plus, you got Bowers and Mike Bobo, experienced play caller, now stepping in and calling the plays.
Yeah, it's huge. And, with Brock Bowers, the returning Mackey Award winner, you got McConkey, who was their top wide receiver last year. You've got Ra Thomas. You've got Lovett. This is a loaded receiving core. And last year, that was probably their weakness, was wide receiver. They were banged up all year. When they came on the field and played late in the year, they did well. But I mean, you got Oscar Delp at your other tight end. This is a loaded receiving core, a big upgrade over last year, especially getting the number one receiver from Mississippi State and their number one receiver from Missouri added to them.
Phil, looking at Georgia's schedule, is there anywhere outside of Tennessee? Everybody, I think, it would be in agreement with that. But is there anywhere else on that schedule that you would circle and say they need to be careful that week?
The only other one would probably be in the swamp, or not the swamp, I should say, but in Jacksonville against Florida, just for the rivalry's sake there, that it's a rivalry. Napier Fields are under the radar. They're going to be a large underdog, but I'm pretty comfortable. I've got Georgia 17-point favorite in that game. So really the only one I'm concerned with is at Tennessee.
All right, Phil, we'll get you out of here in just a couple of minutes. We know you've got to run, but you can make a lot of friends with this conversation. For the first time, at least on our show, you can. For the first time in a long time, it does appear that there is somebody competing with Clemson in the ACC to win that championship, and that team would be the Florida State Seminoles. Are you buying that?
I think Florida State will definitely compete with Clemson. In fact, here's an interesting number, and when I do my position rankings, I'm not looking at a team as I go. I'm just looking at the positions and ranking them. And so it has nothing to do with how I feel about a team on the year. But when I looked after I did all the position rankings, Florida State's offense and defense all rank in my top units in the front of the magazine. That's not a major surprise. There's a lot of major teams that have all 7 units ranked. However, Florida State's units all rank in my top 15. And I didn't realize that until after I was done with all the ratings. So you got Jordan Travis, a quarterback that's made leaps and bounds. Remember, he was just a running quarterback back in 2019. Now he's improved his passing each year. He's very dangerous. They got Benson and to Philly in the running back spot. And not only this team have a lot of talent, but then they bring in a lot of transfers that could take over some of the spots, like Jaheim Bell at tight end. Keon Coleman, Michigan State's leading wide receiver, comes in. Braden Fisk from Western Michigan. Fentrell Cypress at cornerback from Virginia. It's a loaded team in Florida State. Now, they do have to play at Clemson during the season, but they'll probably meet them again in the ACC title game, and that would give them a shot there. However, I did go with Clemson to win the ACC. Sorry, guys. Oh. And we were part of the reason I was talking to Coach Sweeney, going over the team with them. Remember that 2018 defensive line they had?
Sure.
It was one of the best ever. And he said this group doesn't have the star power of 2018, but the group is deeper in talent and experience. And, I was taking Peter Woods, their true freshman, who was dominant in the spring. And I'm like, okay, I got to have him start. But I couldn't start him. They got Thomas, they got Arojo, they got Davis, they got Maskell. This thing is a deep, deep line. I've rated the best defense line in the country. They got Carter and Trotter at linebacker, Nate Wiggins at corner. Cade Klubnik, I think, is going to do extremely well in his first year as a starter. They've got Shipley and Moffitt in the backfield, an improved offensive line. And their toughest 2 games, Notre Dame and Florida State, are both at home. They've lost a grand total of 1 home game over the last 6 years. Ironically, guess who that home game was to?
Mm-hmm. The South Carolina Gamecocks.
Gamecocks, that's right.
Not too long ago, was
No.
it? Yeah, it was. It seems like it was yesterday around here. North Carolina and South Carolina, Florida State and LSU. Quick answer on this one, Phil. Your thoughts on those 2 opening weekend ball games?
The LSU Florida State, I'm actually against Vegas in this one, but I think Vegas has LSU favored. I like Florida State in that one. So I'm going with Florida State. I guess we call it an upset. I don't consider it an upset. I think they have the talent to do that. And then the other one you said was North Carolina against South Carolina.
That's right.
That game is a pure toss-up, and it could come down to one of those where it's determined by special teams. And if that's the case, South Carolina's got the advantage. I like the secondary going against North Carolina. North Carolina's bringing in a new offense. They're going to run the football more this year. Defensively, I give this a slight edge to South Carolina, and special teams, I give the edge to South Carolina. So it's a coin flip game for me.
Well, you're the best in the business. We cannot thank you enough for joining us. We have been looking forward to this for maybe a week or 2, or ever since y'all confirmed it. Every year, you usher in football season. And we would love to have you back next year. So go ahead and pencil that into your schedule and enjoy the opening a few weeks of college football, Phil. Thank you so much for what you do for the entire sport.
Hey, a real pleasure. And I always enjoy talking football with you guys. You know, doggone well, I'll be back with you again next year. Appreciate you having me on.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. Phil
Steele,
PhilSteele.com, the exclusive seller of the Phil Steele college football preview magazines are available at both Barnes & Noble and Books A Million. If you haven't gotten yours yet, do it. But you can also order it online by going to philsteele.com. They'll send it right to your house. That is what I did. Pretty good stuff there from Phil. And you said he'll be joining JC and Morgan soon too, right? So,
well, we usually have him on. I don't know. I'll have to check with Mike on that one.
Well, y'all could, by that time, we might have 3 new conferences, so it might be a great time to have him.
Maybe. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. Yeah, that stuff's nuts. I've been reading about that into the evening and all morning about I'm a kind of a closet Arizona State guy. You know, I kind of like them and their school president. If I were a Sun Devils fan, student, anybody that cares about that school, I'd fire him tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why later. But I would fire this dude right now. Get him out.
Well, we would like to learn why. How about we hit a timeout? You could tell us. The Gamecocks also are on the practice field. Any returns, notable returns from there, we'll make sure to pass along to you. It is day 1 of preseason camp in Columbia. How exciting is that, boys and girls? Here, everybody do me a favor tonight. If you've recorded one, tonight's the night where you watch one of your favorite games from the past of Gamecock football. Open the liquor cabinet and order some pizza and usher in the first day of preseason camp. That's what I'll be doing at least tonight. Thanks to Phil Steele, Michael Flint joining us at the top of hour number 2, and we got some recruiting stuff to get into as well. It's a jam-packed Inside the Gamecocks, the show. We're powered by Electric Bikes of Charleston, electricbikescharleston.com. We'll be right back. Welcome home. That's what the Gamecocks say, and so does the Wando Company, where they can build your dream home starting as low as $160 per square foot. If you live in the Carolinas, Georgia, or Tennessee, their turnkey process takes just 4 to 6 months on average and can be custom designed by size and details. Make your dream a reality. Visit thebarndominiumco.com. That's thebarndominiumco.com. The Wando Company, Gamecock, owned and operated.
Welcome to TravelingCountryClub.com, your modern golf club experience. Hey folks, this is Michael Manus, former Gamecock golfer, inviting you to play more golf with a membership to TravelingCountryClub.com. With over 40 courses across the Carolinas, our membership provides you with an affordable way to enjoy a club-like golf experience. From the mountains to the coast, we offer golf courses that will challenge all types of golfers, no matter your handicap level or level of play. Plus, we offer unique membership benefits not seen anywhere else as part of Traveling Country Club. Tee it up with Traveling Country Club, TravelingCountryClub.com, TravelingCountryClub.com, proud partners of Inside the Gamecocks, the show.
Hey everybody, this is Mo Copper from Carolina Football. The show is painted garden and black every day by a couple of painters. Go to letmepaintsomething.com to check them out. Go Cox.
10% off for military repeat customers or mention the show. Interior, exterior painting, fencing, cabinet staining, concrete painting, popcorn ceiling removal, and more. 803-522-6832. Letmepaintsomething.com.
back, everybody, inside the Gamecocks, the show. First hour of the show presented to you by Cindy Searfoss and the Coldwell Banker Kane Realty team here in the Upstate. Give Cindy a call, 864-414-5271, for all your Upstate residential real estate needs. And before we get it, I want to send our condolences to Nathan Allen on the passing of his father. Hate to hear that. Just an awful situation, man. It's never a good time when someone moves on, but we appreciate you dropping in to let us know, and our thoughts and prayers will be with you and your family. Absolutely. And yeah, it might be a little something extra in your 1801 club there when it shows up.
Yeah,
we appreciate all you do, man. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I lost my dad when I was a little boy, Nathan. So anytime I hear someone losing their dad, it gets me, and I'm really sorry, especially with college football. I'm sure your dad was as big of a Gamecock fan as you. So I know your first year watching the Gamecocks without him will be tough, but keep in mind he's probably going to be sitting right there the whole time anyways. And so thoughts and prayers to you and your family. And sorry, man, that's tough.
Yeah,
that is tough. Welcome back. It's 11:35. Again, Michael Flint is coming up in 25 minutes. If you've not downloaded the all-new Chief Sports app, we would really appreciate you doing that. You can find us or take us anywhere in the partnership section if you need home services and things like that. We're still getting some updates done to that, but all of our partners are in there and will be in there. And we encourage you to, if you think you need something or want to do something, check in there first before you go somewhere else. And please support those who support us around here, and ultimately support the University of South Carolina and its athletes. In the Chief Sports app, the partnership section, the high school scoreboard is in there. It is a really, really neat thing, and we're happy to have it out. And there's more coming to that here pretty soon. Probably next week there will be some new updates and upgrades. So hopefully you enjoy that. JC, I'm sorry. Did you want to tell us why you were going to fire the Arizona State president, or do you want to just roll right into recruiting?
Yeah, I've got another piece of silliness too. Did anybody see the Howard's Rock hat that our friends are selling?
Is that a real thing?
Hold on, let me go find this.
I'm pretty sure it's on the message board. It's Howard's Rock replica hat. I don't even know who came up with this silly idea, but man,
it's a rock, is what you're saying?
It looks like like the cheese heads that the Packers fans wear, but it's a
rock.
It's the rock. It's Howard's Rock. This is either going to be like a thing for this is either going to be like a thing up there for years and years and years that causes a lot of angst and consternation, like the woohoo they do. Like that, that's a debate among Clemson fans. They half of them love the woohoo, half of them hate the woohoo during Tiger Rag. This is either going to be one of those things, or we will never hear about this again. It looks that weird. I don't know. Maybe this may be some Carolina fan or something that decided to do this as something funny, but
I don't think so. I'm seeing it is the same guy doing it. It's interesting.
Where do you find it?
It goes www.rockdeathvalley.com.
Oh, it's got a website?
Oh,
yeah, they're selling these things. $19.99, man.
Yeah, $20 will get you a hat, man.
Get you a hat. You get it like a cheese head. You just put it on your head.
Howard's Rock replica. Oh, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah, dude. No, I'm serious. That's why I brought it up. I was like, man, you guys got to see this.
Dude, that looks like a uncooked turkey.
Yeah, something like that.
It does look like you're wearing a half-cooked turkey on your head.
Get the meat thermometer out, stick it in there, see if it's done.
Another couple hours in the sun yet.
Yeah.
Some of these people up here, man, they are the gift that just keeps on giving, man. I bet Jesus. I bet Jesus created that, didn't he? They got that from Jesus, didn't they?
Came out of the holy water, right?
Straight from. That's
probably wearing those.
I don't know, man. It's either, like I said, it's either gonna be one of those things that sticks up there, and they're kind of like at Carolina, it was like, Carolina girls for a long time was like, oh God, they're playing Carolina, or everybody, or people loved it. This is gonna be one of those things that sticks that they keep talking. They'll keep just like the woohoo in Tiger Rag. I think this has some staying power, depending on how many he sells. And hey, he may end up being a rich man.
Oh my God, I cannot believe that.
I'm sorry. I had to bring that up because it's just so awesome. So there we go. Y'all see the nice profile shot here of our boy with the. Y'all can see right here and it's got Howard's Rock written on the back. I mean, that's good to let people know what it is.
So how soon is it that we see Dabo Swinney wearing this, dancing a stupid dance in a recruiting video?
I would be monitoring TikTok daily if I were you, Phil.
Yes, I'll keep that
in the chat box. He goes, I can picture Dabo running down the hill with that thing on. Could you see that? He kind of looked like Purdue Pete if he did that. That's kind of Purdue Pete, the creepiest mascot in the world. Anyway,
does this benefit anything? Like,
no,
like a
benefits this young man's pockets is probably what it benefits.
All right, so we got a Clemson fan in here. Y'all cheer for a chicken that dances out behind the curtain. Shake my head. Absolutely.
Yep. Sure.
Hey, you can find something to make fun of in any program. I mean, really, and I mean the traditions are just there, but you can find something to make fun of.
They should create one with a crack in it. Didn't one of their own fans steal the rock?
I wonder if this is
it?
post vandalized rock or if this is like the original rock. Because they've cast that thing in plaster and had it to memorialize it in places.
Whoever did that, look, I will say this. I have, it's college athletics, so we all pick on everybody picks on everybody. South Carolina gets picked on by everybody. Clemson gets picked on. That's part of that's part of it. I do respect all traditions, and because I think if we didn't have them, this world would really truly suck. I for the life of me cannot figure out why some doofus thought it would be a smart idea to go in and steal that thing. You got to be an idiot, like I feel like I'm man enough to say like, hey, look, that's their tradition. That's their tradition. Okay, like it, love it, whatever. I respect the fact they have one, but whatever idiot thought that he was going to go in there and do that, that is so sad. It's like the guy that poisoned the trees. Like, I mean, come on, man, get a life.
Oh my goodness,
that guy's dead.
Of course, that was a rival fan.
Yeah, he did. He has. Yeah, the late.
No, that was because when the rock got vandalized, people immediately were like, "Oh, some Gamecock did it." And turns out it was one of their own. Which I would
fire, man.
I would banish that dude from the university for life.
Absolutely.
I'd just be like, man, that's embarrassing. And if a Gamecock fan did that and vandalized something at Carolina, I'd say, get the hell out. Go play for somebody else. But
it's embarrassing.
Anyway, you can make fun of just about anybody, but I felt like I had to bring that up and give y'all a laugh here on a Friday.
Just
because it's so weird.
I wonder how many.
And I can't stop looking at it. It's like, what is this? Hey, if it catches on, it catches on, though, man.
There's no way.
What do they call it? They call the student section the Rockheads. Like the Flintstones, Rockhead.
Now you can be,
Rockhead,
dude.
So.
The if you go to the website and click the photos, like go to click purchase, and then there's like a whole bunch of photos underneath the first one, and click like the third to last one where he's kind of looking off like it's a. I mean, he can't think that like this is
Zoolander.
Like, what are you doing? Golly. I mean, is this the guy that created it? If it did, and it takes off, hey, it's America. You do. That's what it's all about.
Make a buck, man.
Or is this like his brother? Like, hey, man, nobody's ever going to see these photos. I promise. Let's just do it.
It's okay. Yeah, listen. Just,
now, who do we send this to? Does this go to?
I'm buying one.
College Game Day, or who's this?
I'm going to wear it on the show. I'll say this to our Clemson fan that's lurking. If I remember to buy, I'll remember to remind me. I'll buy one if Clemson beats South Carolina and Columbia this year, that following Monday, I will wear the rock head on the show, provided they have a triple X size because my head is huge.
It says it's adjustable.
I'll find a way. It's adjustable.
Yeah. It's got this.
This had to be created in response to South Carolina wearing those big oversized caps. That's what this is.
Yeah.
It was like, we can do it better. We just make it.
We're going to do it with a rock.
Keep your 50 hands off my rock. Keep your 50 hands off my head. If you're not going to give 110%, keep your 50 hands off my head. That's Frank Howard. He played that.
I can't believe I'm seeing
It's made a high quality foam as opposed to
high quality foam.
Low quality foam.
Is it average? Is it average foam?
Average quality foam.
Average foam. I only use that old high quality. I just want average.
Oh my God.
Anyway.
All right.
The average jambalaya corporation. Anyway, so Jan goes, it's not furniture, it's a piece of like Eddie Murphy. I was like, that's not furniture. Guys.
That's not furniture. I love it.
Gregor says that'll look good on the CW network.
Hey, speaking of Clemson,
that's what they're going to wear in the press box.
Well, when we were talking to Phil Steele, I to try to bring some sort of sanity back to what's transpired here. There's a strong possibility that they could draw College Game Day in Week 4 with Florida State coming to town. Just an FYI.
I think absolutely. That's a big early season matchup for them, and maybe one of two. Keep in mind the ACC did away with divisions this year, so it's the top two teams. So it could be that you got Florida State, Clemson Part 1, and Florida State, Clemson Part 2 in Charlotte. If things play out, so that'll be it'll be really interesting to follow that. I think in that league this year, considering the following year the SEC will be structured that way.
Of course, that's the same day as Ohio State at Notre Dame, but I don't think Notre Dame's going to be very good. So I'm going to go with it. Florida State at Clemson, College Game Day location, Week 4.
Sweet. All right. So why do I hate the Arizona State president? Apparently, is like number one. He's okay with this streaming deal for like $11 million less a year. He doesn't want to leave the Pac-12 because he's schmoozing with his buddies at Stanford and Cal and all that.
By the way, real quick, that JC, that grant of rights deal did not get approved by the league this morning. So if Oregon departs for the Big Ten, it's over. Pac-12
they're out.
Yeah, they're done. And so but he's like kicking and screaming, and it's like so. Unlike in South Carolina, where we have boards of trustees set up for each individual in-state, and then the government sort of just oversees that. The legislature oversees that, and the governor oversees that. In some states, and I actually think this is a better way to do it, the entire university system is governed by a state board of regents. And they have, I think Georgia and Florida are that way. I think state of North Carolina is that way too. It's kind of weird. Like NC State is actually part of the UNC system. Georgia Tech is part of the university system of Georgia, that kind of thing. So Arizona's governed in that manner, and they're like, well, wait a minute. Why U of A is going? You guys need to go too. And if you know anything about Arizona State, it's kind of just a disaster of a disaster of a disaster. Bobby Hurley, amazingly, is still the basketball coach there, but he's had issues. Their athletic director's one of those guys that kind of thinks he's smarter than he is. He was responsible for the Herm Edwards hire and all that mess. And the school president's a moron. And so the fact that somebody even would consider taking $10 million less a year to stream on Apple again shows that place, the leadership at that place is clueless. And that was the story, that they're having to drag the school president kicking and screaming into the Big 12. And I'm like, well, Arizona's going, you guys, shoot, Arizona State can do a lot of damage in the Big 12. That's a sleeping giant of a program, always has been. And so I'm like, man, this is how we got to this point in college football. School presidents have outsized power, and they don't have the knowledge or the common sense to run sports. and then that just backs that up. So anyway, that's the deal there. Somebody, Brandon Kuhn, I think, had a question about a player that Coles from Tennessee that committed to Kentucky or Souls. He wasn't a take for Carolina. They kind of backed off of him, although they were the early leader. So wish him well at Kentucky. And that's the deal there.
All right, it's 11:50, time for our final timeout of our number one. We are teed up by the coolest club in the Carolinas. If you play golf and you don't play golf through Traveling Country Club, you shouldn't be playing golf. It is the Steel of Steels. TravelingCountryClub.com, 45 courses to play in North and South Carolina, from the mountains to the seas. The fall is right around the corner. Who doesn't like playing mountain golf in the fall? TravelingCountryClub.com. Hang tight. We'll be right back. The preferred sign partner of Gamecock Athletics is Signorama Columbia, and they should be yours too. A full-service sign company that handles design, production, install, and service, Signorama Columbia has helped to bring to life the perfect vision for so many all across South Carolina. Owned and operated by proud Gamecock alumni, they can handle all types of signage, including interior and exterior, vehicle graphics, and more. Go to Signorama.com and find the West Columbia location, or call them at 803-407-9284. Bring your brand to life with Signorama Columbia, and go Gamecocks.
Charleston Fitness Equipment is keeping South Carolina in shape. Clients have come from all over the Palmetto State to find that one piece of equipment that they enjoy that keeps them looking and feeling good. Whether it's a home rower, treadmill, elliptical, free weights, a home gym, or something else, Charleston Fitness Equipment keeps the mirror smiling back at you. Get in shape like the Gamecocks do. Visit charlestonfitnessequipment.com. Gamecock owned and operated and proud partners of Inside the Gamecocks, the show.
If you're in the real estate market in the Low Country or even in the Midlands, please contact me, JB, with Coast to Coast Realty SC. You hear me and see me every day here on Inside the Gamecocks, and it would be an honor to earn your business. I've been around real estate my entire life, as it's somewhat of a family business. I work with an elite team of experts, from loans to insurance to closing, and they make my clients and my life very easy. It really is elite. Coast to Coast Realty SC.com is where you can find our staff, and you can always reach out to me here as well. Go Gamecocks.
Coach O here, and when I'm not eating average jambalaya or celebrating endless summer in Destin, I like to eat pimento cheese straight out the bucket. And the only pimento cheese I like to eat is from Nana's Porch. It's award-winning. It'll melt in your mouth. It's good on a cracker. It's good in a bowl. It's good on a piece of bread. Also, don't forget, Nana's Porch has a hell of a food truck. It's award-winning as well, and they're here for all of your catering needs. So get online, nanasporch.com. It's good. Coach O signing off. Endless summer, go Tiger.
Ladies and gentlemen, here it is.
Welcome back, everybody, inside the Gamecocks, the show. First hour of the show, presented to you, Cindy Searfoss, Coldwell Banker Kane Realty Team. Say it twice today, because I know we missed a few. But don't forget to call Cindy if you're moving into or out of the upstate. 864-414-5271 is how to get in touch with her. She'll be happy to take care of you, talk to you, all your upstate residential real estate needs, like she has for many of our audience already. We appreciate her hanging in there with us, being a good partner for us.
I tell you what, we will get, of course, plenty into the actual football team at South Carolina. But, guys, if this private equity situation unfolds at Florida State and J.P. Morgan basically buys them out of the ACC, you're going to see major changes come quickly in college athletics. If this ends up happening, and if it works out for the bank itself, if they're able to not only recoup their investment but make God knows how much money on this, especially with new TV deals coming into college athletics, where they'll be able to pay that money back. You'll have a band or a wave of change, a rain band of changes that happen quickly until major structure is kind of reinserted to stop some of it down the road. But if that's what happens, if that's how Florida State, if they find a loophole and they get through that loophole and the only obstacle is money, and then they tap private equity cash to get out, college athletics is going to change the minute that it happens. I mean, it's already changed. It's going to change. It'll turn over on its head. That'd be nuts. Nuts. Like nuts.
I mean, yeah. Wow.
I kind of think you'll end up seeing college football go back to the future a little bit because, okay, so the Big Ten, let's say they do gobble up the West Coast schools and, maybe dip into the South a little bit. And so you're basically, if you get, let's say they add Florida State, Clemson, and then they add Stanford, Cal, Oregon, Washington. So they're a 22-team league. You can't have a 22-team league and do it like they do, 1 through 22, and everybody goes to Indianapolis and has a Merry Christmas. I mean, it just, the top two go to Indy and that's it. So there'll be some sort of pod system and division system. And so Stanford and Cal and Southern Cal and Oregon and Washington, they're still going to be playing each other just like they always have. It's just going to be under a different banner. Florida State, Clemson, Maryland, go name your school at Penn State, up and down Rutgers. That's basically part of the old Big East, plus Clemson and FSU. If the SEC added Virginia and North Carolina, South Carolina all of a sudden is kind of back ACC land, where they played those schools. I mean, so it's going to end up going – people are like, oh, my God, these conferences stretch across the country. Yeah, but then they're going to have to divide back, right, and have it make sense geographically. If they do go to two super conferences like the SEC, Big Ten, and that's it, it will be. And it'll be a lot unfortunately, it'll be structured a lot like the NFL, but you'll still have those geographic rivalries just like you do in the NFL, like the Packers and Bears and all that, Steelers and Browns and, all that good stuff. So it's, it's going to be interesting, but I think a lot of this, while it makes traditionalists like myself panic a little bit, because I'm like, oh my God. I think if it gets too large, there comes a point where it just kind of diverts back to how it's always been. And you're in the same conference as Southern Cal, but you're not going to see them and play them regularly. So
I don't think I don't know that any of us are in any way, shape, or form capable of predicting what could be coming to college athletics. I am fearful of some of it. When you start getting politics, and not that college athletics is not big business, it is big business. That's not what I'm getting at. But when you start getting investment funds and things like that, it's a slippery slope. We better be careful. So we'll just have to see how it all works out. All right. Hour one is in the books. Wando's World returns. Michael Flint, my brother from another mother, and I could confirm that, as a matter of fact, will be joining us here in just a couple of minutes. For those that maybe watched sparingly or didn't watch last night, the NFL returned 21-16, the Hall of Fame game, the final score. You might have noticed a name in the game that had a couple of catches. It was E.J. Jenkins, 2 catches for 18 yards. If he makes the club, Aaron Rodgers will be throwing the football to him this year. You always had to think, the guy's 6'6", 250 pounds. Like, how did we screw this up? And then he had to go to Georgia Tech, get screwed up even more.
A poster child of misuse. Toward the end of 2021, though, I'll tell you, part of those games like Auburn and Florida and North Carolina where the Gamecocks ran all over everybody, people didn't notice. E.J. Jenkins was out there just blocking his ass off. I mean, opening, just killing people like corners and stuff.
Just come out here.
But I would have liked to They didn't do what they should have done with him. Let's just chalk that up to another.
No. Come on. That's a stretch. Don't say stuff like that. That's not true. You know it.
Oh, come on. Oh, it's the truest thing I've said all day. You know.
Oh, you're going way out in the universe. Why would you use a guy who's 6'6", 250 pounds to throw the ball to, JC? Come on. You know better than that.
I don't know. It's baffling.
Oh, come on. You got to be better than that. Well, why is the sky blue?
Because the Los Angeles Rams don't
green?
everybody.
That's right. Yeah, there's nobody that fits that profile in the Rams.
There's nobody that fits that profile in the Rams.
Why is
Except for a tight end, maybe, and he doesn't have hands. No, like literally no hands.
It just is. All right. When we return, the redheaded stepchild will be here on Inside the Gamecocks, the show, part of the Chief Sports Network.
Just as your State Farm agent combines good neighbor service with surprisingly great rates, you can combine your home, auto, life, or small business insurance with Tony Pope State Farm Insurance today. And guess what you'll get? That's right, even more good neighbor service with surprisingly great rates. In fact, Tony Pope State Farm is your go-to agent anywhere in South Carolina, North Carolina, or Georgia for the service you deserve at the price you want. So try combining your home, life, auto, and or small business insurance today. Tony Pope State Farm has been in business for more than 30 years and can handle anything you need in the tri-state area. Once again, Tony Pope State Farm will help you mix and match perfectly. Call 843-851-2222 or visit TonyPope.com today. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Nana's Porch, nanasporch.com. At Nana's Porch, they cater weddings, parties, and all kinds of special events. Their meals are served buffet style. In seconds, they're encouraged. Plus, they can bring their mobile food unit to bring on-site and serve your guests as a unique alternative for your catering needs. Inquire about rentals as well. nanasporch.com. Find them on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. 336-259-7550.
If you're on Medicare currently or approaching eligibility, it's time to enroll in a Medicare plan that meets your needs. Palmetto Medicare is here to help you through the process. Palmetto Medicare's owner, Brian Spencer, and his team of experts are here to assist you. Learn about the benefits and enroll in a plan that will cover as many of your medical costs as possible. Some of the advantages of Medicare health plans may include variety of plan choices, increased benefits, lower premiums, and more. Give Palmetto Medicare a call to discuss your insurance and help get the exact coverage for your needs today.
.12:02, final hour of the work week. Welcome back inside the Gamecocks, the show, live from the Sinorama Studios and built by the Barn Dominium Co., the barndoco.com, to build your dream home for as low as $160 per square foot. The return of the man, the myth, and the legend is now arrived. Wando's World, aptly named by these two geeks last year, so I just went with it. Michael Flint joins us on the first day of practice, as a matter of fact, Mike. And if you look close enough here, Phil dressed up the O in Wando for you.
Oh, I like it. That looks sharp.
No mistake. That's right. That's right. It's an excellent haircut on that O, isn't it?
Beautiful. That's a beautiful head of hair up there.
Dude, are you at your parents' house?
No, man.
Oh, yeah. I thought that was a room over the garage. I was like, what are you doing at your mommy and daddy's?
Oh, man.
You're just hanging. Hey, what is it? Failure to launch, right?
There we go.
Failure to launch.
That's it.
Man.
All right, man.
We don't want a nude Terry Bradshaw to come walking through the background.
That'd be that. Would
remember
be
that movie? Terry Bradshaw's like, that was our naked room. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh man. Well, I don't know if it's raining over there like it's been raining over here all morning, but it has been dumping rain outside, so that kind of sucks. But welcome, man. Looking forward to a long season again, and I'm sure I'll talk to you tonight around 10 or so.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm glad that football's back.
Yeah, exactly. It's back. They're about there for day one today. They've wrapped up, right, JC? They finished around 11 or so this morning. Their first practice, I think. Mike, what's the first? I mean, I know you didn't play for Coach Beamer, but just in general, what's the first day of practice like?
No, it's just a lot of getting reacclimated, to the practice schedule. Basically, I mean, a lot of times you're just going in shorts and a helmet, and so it's a lot of just getting everybody back together on the same field, offense, defense, special teams, getting used to the schedule, and just going. I mean, you're hitting the ground running. I mean, it's all full speed. There's no really any half speed type of stuff. I mean, you're full speed, but really getting the offense set, getting the base offense installed, base defense installed. A lot of the young guys, teaching them and coaching them and getting those guys learning the system, the scheme. But it's a lot of the base stuff. It's a lot of the new install. So, but they're hitting the ground running now. I mean, it's once you get that first day down, you're going. I mean, you get the shells after a couple of days, and you get full pads, and that's when all the soreness kicks in.
Coach Beamer has mentioned a couple of times in the last couple of weeks that there will be a bunch of freshmen that play this year on both sides of the football. He didn't say necessarily that they would be starting, but they'll be on the two deep and they'll be out there running around. What's it like being a freshman when you get it to this level of college football and you walk out there for the first time and you see guys like Spencer Rattler and Juice Wells and Tonka Hemingway, dudes who've been there, done that. And you're just a young buck kind of getting introduced to college football. What's that like versus being around a while?
Yeah, it's a bit of a surreal moment coming from high school, getting into the college game. But, these days where you got the majority of your class enrolling in January, you're really already there. So the newness of all of that is, it's kind of worn off by then for a lot of the guys, but with some of the newer guys, it's getting acclimated to the schedule. They've been there most of the summer. I think most of these guys have been there since June. So they understand the workouts and how tough it really is. And I mean, how sore you get. I mean, you're sore in muscles you didn't know you had, but once you get into practice and once you get into that, it's a whole different, it's really a different kind of sore. And so it's getting used to that. At the high school level, it's, you practice and, you go back home and you might watch a little bit of film, you might work out a little bit, but at the college level, it's an all day, everyday thing. And I think a lot of it is getting used to the schedule and being in the building, meeting, and then having to work out, you have practice, and then, you're really not home much. I mean, you're at the stadium and you're at the facility basically 24/7. And that's one of the big differences you got to get used to at the college level is it's a whole heck of a lot harder than it is in high school in general. I know there's some the kids coming from, different high school programs, so they all get acclimated a little bit differently. But really the schedule is tough because it's a 24/7 thing. And it really is a grind, especially, once you get into it after the first week, it gets tough, but it's really getting used to that scheduling part. But I think the coaches have done such a good job with getting the majority of these kids in January, and then the others coming in in June and July. So really, you're used to the schedule. You're used to the early mornings, the running, the working out, the class. So, I think a lot of that is, but this is the hardest. This is the hardest month of their lives right here.
So a guy that you played with, Joyner, is still there. And he this year will go into the season in his third different position group, running back. Yesterday, Dowell Loggins essentially said it ain't close. This guy is the clear-cut number one. How do you interpret that?
I think.
Let me rephrase this. Is that more of a tip of the cap to carry on Joyner, as in like, hey, we think this guy's going to be pretty good, or is it more reflective of what else is in the room currently?
No, I think it's a tip of the cap to carry on. He's a guy that has been here for a long time, but he's the epitome of what you want to see in a player that you recruit. It's so easy with the transfer portal these days for guys that face a little bit of adversity to just jump ship and just find the next program. But, he sees the long term. He sees how much this program loves him, the love that the fans have for him, and riding the wave of the good times and the bad times, and understanding that, you keep working hard, you keep doing things the right way, the way that Coach Beamer has always expressed and has always laid out there, that, good things happen. And you can see with him how that's played out, the journey from where he started to how he's gotten here. And it's been really refreshing to see that with him. But I think it's a tip of the cap to him. You look at how much weight he's gained, to be able to play that running back position. I mean, he's a 6'1", 230-pound running back. That's a big guy. I mean, that's a big boy for a running back. And I think he's done it the right way. I think his experience of playing quarterback, his experience of being a receiver has really helped. And I think when you look at that and what it takes to play running back from a vision standpoint, to be able to see the hole and hit the hole and be able to understand cuts, I think it's really helped him. And I think it's been more of a seamless transition for him at the running back position than it was at the receiver position, which is not to diminish what it takes for either one, because he's always been he's an athlete. I mean, you get the ball in his hands and good things happen. I think you can see that from what he did as a quarterback, being able to have that vision, to find the hole, find that cutback lane. And I think that's really helped. But I really think it's a tip of the cap to him, because I think Juju McDowell is a special type player as well. You see what happens when he gets the ball in his hands, whether it be out of the backfield, receiving, or running. You go back to his freshman year when we played East Carolina. The head coach, everybody was on his back, riding him to victory, and you saw how hard he ran. So I really think it is a tip of the cap. I think between him, you got Mario Anderson, and you have the freshman Braswell. It may not be deep, but I think we got a lot of talent in that room. But I do think it's a big tip of the cap to carry on.
Yeah, I think he's got the skill set to do it. I mean, I've kind of always felt running back may be a home for him. And, when you watch the spring game, there wasn't a lot of room to run for the backs in that particular game. And I think anytime you have like half your starting line on one team and half your starting line on the other, it's gonna be hard to get cohesiveness up front. But I went back and watched it, Michael, a second time. And there are things Joyner does at running back just naturally. Like he's really good at making the first guy miss. That's a big key for a running back, especially if you can't block that well up front. And it seemed, there's just a couple of things here and there. Like one time he needed to cut it back inside and he bounced outside, which quarterbacks sometimes will do that. But other than that, between the tackles, he was fine. He's big. He ran physical. He ran over somebody one time. And I thought Mario got better as the night went on, too. That there were some times where it seemed like he was kind of adjusting to the speed of the game. But as the game went on, he got more comfortable and did some nice things naturally as well. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I agree. I think a lot of it, for those guys is getting comfortable in that game, in that actual game setting. I think it's going to be big against North Carolina for him. There may be some misses as far as, missed hole or trying to bounce something outside that he really should just, take at a 1 or 2 yard gain rather than trying to make something happen, trying to get outside, then you go for a 2 or 3 yard loss. So it's really taking what they're going to give you. But I think, looking at it from a size standpoint, and what I'm interested to see, and from the physical standpoint, and you kind of compare these two, is I tell you, there's Corey Boyd was a big guy. Corey Boyd was every bit of 6'1", close to 6'2", and was over 200 pounds. But the physical nature that he ran the ball was as good as I've seen at South Carolina. I think, you know, if you met him in the hole, he was going to win. You know, he wasn't going backwards. And, you know, from a size standpoint, I'm interested to see how kind of to carry on with that size and that getting that physicality to him that you're not necessarily used to having at playing quarterback or playing receiver. And so I think the big thing for him is the consistency between the tackles and how physical, you know, he runs. But I think it's there. You know, he's been doing it at receiver. You know, he's played on special teams. So I think it's there. It's just it could take, you know, a little bit of time to get into the games to see that physicality come out, you know, to be consistently used to doing it. And that's the one thing I'll, you know, will look for, you know, especially with him, is that physicality between the tackles at the size that he is now.
Michael Flint joining us 12:15 here on Inside the Gamecocks, the show, part of the Chief Sports Network. You can all, as they say, be like Mike and download the Chief Sports app if you haven't done it yet. This is our version of Mike, not like the 80s, 90s version of Mike. Nick Harbor, Michael, you were transitioned to wide receiver at South Carolina. You were a quarterback coming in from Wando, and go Warriors. Oh, and then they ended up moving you to wide receiver. Nick Harbor has been technically moved to wide receiver from tight end, but it's not like it's a whole new role for him. All right, so here's what I'm getting at, though. There's a difference in being fast and quick, and there's a difference in playing fast and everything else. So kind of walk us through. I mean, I know what you think of Nick Harbor as an athlete. I mean, he might be the best athlete we've ever had on the football team at the University of South Carolina. He's that good. But what will he be going through in transitioning to this speed or at this level of play, the speed of the game in college football? And as a wide receiver, if you can get into some of the specifics, some of those little things that will help him early in his career to get on the field.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, at the college level, or, you know, at his level, just the way speed, you know, coming from high school to college, you know, speed is always huge. You get to college and, you know, speed is massive to have, especially the speed he has. But once you get there, it's, you know, you got to be able to get off the ball. You got to be able to get off press coverage. You know, some guys struggle with that early. And if you can't get off, you know, press coverage and get into the route, it messes timing up with the quarterback. So it's a big thing, being able to get off press coverage, but also really running clean routes and not rounding your routes. You know, a lot of these DBs in the SEC can run as well. Maybe not as well as him or have the stride that he does, but, you know, in these tight spaces where it's, you know, it's not about, you know, speed per se, but more about quickness and having quick feet, being able to separate from the defensive backs and getting into a route, you know, like whether you're running like an out route or a dig, really getting out of that route quickly and separating from that defensive back. Because those defensive backs, when you start rounding routes, a lot of times those guys can undercut, and that's a dangerous situation where you get yourself into pick six type situations. So a lot of it is running good, clean routes and really understanding the route concept of what you're doing to not put the ball in jeopardy. So, you know, for me, it's a lot about, you know, separation off the line with, you know, press coverage, but then really running good, clean routes to separate from the defensive back. You know, because that's going to be a big piece. I know we're going to utilize them a lot, you know, down the field. Get those long legs going and put some air underneath it and let them outrun everybody. You know, another piece that is challenging is the mental part of it, and learning how to play fast, but really understanding what you're doing. A lot of times for these young guys, you hear a play call and, you know, running kind of a hurry up or no huddle type of offense. And you start thinking, okay, I line up here. I got to get on the ball. Wait, the ball's about to be snapped. And you're trying to figure out what route you have within that concept or within that play call, because it may not necessarily be called out as, you know, some offenses, you know, have it a numbered, and everybody has a number of a route you run. And so you hear that number and you know what route. But a lot of, you know, calls are based on concepts, you know, route concepts where it's a name or, you know, however the play call is. And within that play call, everybody knows the route they run, but it's not necessarily given to you. So that's another part of it, is really the mental part. I know the coaches have done a really good job with the young guys and helping them, learn and understand the offense, really understand the concepts, and not put them in a lot of situations where not necessarily ready, but making sure those guys are playing fast when given that opportunity and understanding the offense and the concepts that they're running.
I want to dive a little deeper into that. And Craig says, by the way, he'd give Harbor 3 to 4 end arounds a game. Well, Craig, the offensive coordinator, to do that, he's gone. That was part of Sat's ordeal. Remember, I'm gonna throw the ball down the field. Oh wait, I'll just hand it to you right here. But Mike, you mentioned the play calls and stuff like that. What am I saying here? They send in a concept essentially, and these guys know what they're doing within it, right? All right. So Dowell Loggins is simplifying play calls here. He's getting it more to should be at the college level, kind of like what Coach Spurrier did for you, right? And or for South Carolina, but like when you were playing, not specifically for you. He did nothing for you actually specifically. But so I guess what I'm trying to figure out here is if you're a young guy, even not a young guy, all of them, the whole group, like, can you tell us how much easier it's going to be for a guy to learn the offense when you send in one call and they just know what to do in there versus the quarterback rolling out 19 and 20 word plays and you're sitting here going, yeah, I have no idea what this is ridiculous. I mean, no wonder it took 2 months last year to figure out who the hell was going where.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to the simplicity of it, and the longer play calls really dial in, what you're supposed to do specifically sometimes, but sometimes it gets so complex to where it's too much. It's too long. The quarterback has to sit here and say all of this stuff, especially when you're not huddled up, trying to get signals in from the sideline and everything. But I think really, I say simplifying it. Some shorter play calls could really be a little more challenging because you have to understand the whole concept of what everybody's doing, and you really have to learn the routes of everybody. I think it's kind of hit and miss, but as far as how utilizing some of these young guys and doing that is almost kind of sub packages with these guys that really highlight the strengths of what they do. And I think especially for Nick Harbor, is creating mismatch and really matchup nightmares to where you've got the flexibility to move them around a little bit, line them up on the end line of scrimmage, kind of in that H-back type position, matching up with a safety or even potentially a linebacker and moving him around the formation and really helping him create that space to not put him in a lot of these situations where, you got opportunity to get jammed and the corners are playing press on him. But, I do think, seeing how, the offense has gone so far and, you say the simplicity of it. I think it's, when you look at the old or what came out last year of these personnel groupings of having 19 different personnel groupings, I've never really heard of that. What I've always been used to, and even at the college level, was you got 10 personnel, 11 personnel, 12 personnel, which is, running back, tight end. It all equals 5. So if you have 10 personnel, you got 1 running back, 0 tight ends, 4 receivers. Or 12 personnel is 1 running back, 2 tight ends, 2 receivers. And that's what, it's personnel groupings based on positions and not specific folks. I think it's on the coaches to really get the right folks in the game based on what they're hearing on the headset. So, but it's it's really interesting to see how we utilize them. I would temper the expectations of, being a true freshman and really having to learn and play fast, where you got guys who have been here for a long time that may not be as talented per se, but when you get them on the field during game day, they just play faster and they know what they're doing, and you don't have to worry about the mistakes being made because of a couple of mistakes could be the difference in the ball game.
JC, I think I figured out the offense. Just if you see a 5'10" corner, put Harbor on the field, just throw the ball. I mean, honestly, if Rattler's accurate, he's going to catch it every time. He's going to run away from everybody. He's going to Forrest Gump himself into the end zone. I want to get JC into this, Mike. He's you'll have to excuse my friend. He's a little slow. yesterday they singled out Nick Gargiulo, and we all had the chance to meet Nick a few months ago. And what a nice guy. He is a large man. Don't read too much into this at all. It's the first day of practice, but this morning Sidney Fugar was with the first team offensive line out there at right tackle. Who knows why, but he was with the first team offensive line, which means that if for some reason whoever their first team right tackle was, maybe it's him, maybe it's not him, but that means he was the second string more than likely. So these two guys have been brought in essentially to play, and they are huge. It's hard to, we've been talking about this a lot, guys. It's hard to envision this offense with all of the talent they have at the skill positions and the quarterback position. And I'm one that actually thinks the running back group is a little bit better than they're getting credit for. It's hard to envision them being one of the better units in the league without those guys up front doing what they're supposed to do. So we've been asking you about how simplified it is for the skill guys and for the quarterback, but how much easier is it for an offense to click when it's simplified for the offensive lineman, and what does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot that goes into the offensive line, the scheme of what they're doing. You know, how they decide who blocks who based on the alignment of the front. You know, the fronts in the fronts based on, you know, where the defensive tackles are lined up, where the defensive ends are lined up. A lot of that is determined, you know, based on alignment in the fronts. But, you know, I think the way that that outside zone, the way that worked, takes a special type of lineman, you know, trying to stretch and cut people off and not being as much of an attacking scheme, you know, than we're used to. So, you know, I haven't seen a whole lot about, you know, the scheme, or read a whole lot about kind of the scheme that they're running from an offensive line standpoint, and, you know, what type of whether, you know, zone or the pin and pull, or, you know, whatever it may be, the inside zone, pin and pull, or, you know, whatever it is. But, you know, those guys are big, and what Coach Beamer and staff has done, and what I've seen kind of a difference in, is those front guys, is the type of athlete that they recruit. You know, guys that are big, broad-shouldered guys that have athleticism, guys that, you know, play on a high school basketball team. You know, it's just the type of athlete that they're bringing in is different. That can be flexible and play different positions. I think you've seen that with a lot of those guys already, moving center to guard, or, you know, going from right tackle to left tackle, or vice versa, guard to tackle. You know, it is interesting because I'm wondering, you know, Tyshawn Wanamaker seemed locked in for that right tackle position, really has transformed his body this offseason. So that is interesting. But those two guys are big guys. You know, all the transfer linemen really are being brought into play. And those guys that have, you know, you have 1 year left, your goal is to come in and play. You didn't, you know, you're not leaving a school to come in and, you know, play you know, be on the field goal unit as a lineman, and run a couple of plays a game. So I think just the competition that they have out there is going to be big. The guys they're bringing back have played a lot, and I'm excited about this group that we have coming in this year. There's going to be some new guys out there, but I think the experience is there with the transfers they brought in. So,
yeah, did you hear that yesterday, JC? When Shane, I mean, he singled out Nick Gargiulo. He basically said, "No, he's a guy. He's a dude, and he's pretty good."
You watch him at Yale. I mean, he's a man.
Yeah, he is.
Plays mean. That's a lot of things. You know, you can be big as an offensive lineman, but if you don't play mean and have that physicality to you, you're going to be on your backside a lot. And that's something that he plays with. You play with that chip on your shoulder. You know, you may mess up, but you're going to mess up full speed. You may miss your guy, but you're going to go find somebody else to hit. And that's what it's all about, is being a lineman, is you're going to miss assignments at times, but it's missing them full speed and not looking clueless. Like sometimes last year, it seemed that those guys were, you know, not quite sure who to block or what to do.
I felt for him. I felt bad.
I tell you, I like this interior. I mean, you think about it. You got Gargiulo there. I'm pretty sure he's gonna be really good. Vershawn Lee is one of the best athletes on the offensive line. He can play any position.
He ate entire chicken wings. He didn't even spit the bone out.
2-time chicken wing champion, by the way.
Amazing stuff.
Vershawn. And then Trey Jones is a freak athlete for a guy that size. Trey Jones ran 4.65 at camp. A kid from Abbeville, and that's why they took him. That's why Miami tried to flip him.
Hard not to like Abbeville kids, man.
But yeah, you gotta like it's. I like this interior. I think and behind them, Marquis Anderson, Trovon Ball, Grayson Maines, all those guys. It'll work itself out. I think Ball and Anderson both could see time this year, especially Ball. Even though Anderson came in early, and I think that when you look at Fugar being the first team tackle, it's a concern, but then again, it's not. I've heard mixed things. I've heard Fugar had a really good summer. And, he's a guy that's got 3 years left. So it's not like, he's a one and doneer. And then, it was disappointing if he didn't win the job. But I also think Tyshawn Wanamaker almost slimmed down too much, and they're trying to build him back up. So who knows what will happen there. And what I was told about Ja'Kai Moore at the left tackle is, look, if Ja'Kai Moore gets beat, it's just because he gets beat, because he doesn't blow assignments. He gives 110% all the time. He was a highly rated recruit coming in, so maybe this is his year to get after it. So there's some pieces there that make me think they're going to be okay. They've got to avoid injuries and go do it. And I think sort of the simplification of this offense is really going to help them too, Mike, like you pointed out.
Yeah, I think that is. I think the scheme, you go back and look at the year that Kevin Harris, was the leading rusher in the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
It was no secret that South Carolina's game plan was to come in and run the football. And we played against a lot of stacked boxes that year. But the offensive line, what they were able to do for Kevin Harris running that ball was impressive. And I think a lot of it comes down to scheme, because a lot of those guys that blocked for Kevin Harris, that year he was the leading rusher in the SEC, were, some of the 3 or 4 of some of those same guys that were blocking last year. And there was times out there, guys they weren't playing fast. And, it's any position that you play, whether it's offense or defense, that if you don't really fully understand your assignment and know what you're supposed to do, you play a lot slower. And when you're second guessing yourself and trying to figure out what to do while, at the line of scrimmage, it's a recipe for disaster. And, I think with these guys really understanding concepts and knowing the fronts of what they're faced, and then also knowing their assignment once they see that front and not having to think as much, play a lot faster when you understand what you're doing.
Mike, we'll get you out of here on this note. We'll get more on the defensive side of South Carolina football next Friday, but Spencer Rattler, for the first time that I can remember, and I mean that with all the respect in the world for all the guys that you and I both know, former quarterbacks at Carolina, he's the dude. He's the dude. They will ultimately go as he goes this year. How do you, at least as he opens up camp, his final year of college football, the way he finished last year, what we have heard he has done in the offseason, this is his team. Shane Beamer has told him that this is your football team. So what do you think he means to the 2023 South Carolina offense?
He's huge. I think this team goes as he goes. As you see last year, I think looking back at last year, some of, what happened to him is some of the best things that could have happened to him, and the struggles that he went through, and, knowing that what happened at the end of the year is completely different, and understanding, what you're doing. And I think that is a huge learning experience, but was very, very beneficial for him, because he's got all the talent in the world. But, going through those struggles, helped shape, I think, a lot of what can happen this year, especially with what happened the last 2 games of the year, and even in the bowl game, and really getting a feel for what Spencer Rattler can really do, and the type of talent that he really has, where you get, when he fully understands what's going on and can see the field, and can you kind of you move the pocket around for him a little bit. You have some, diversity within the offense, and you can create, situations where you got the defense on their heels, and he can cut it loose, man, he's got all the talent in the world. And you see the accuracy that he played with last year. And what was really impressive was, his down the field accuracy of balls 20, 30 yards plus, which was huge. And that's what I'm really looking forward to seeing this year, with him and coming out and really, looking confident and feeling confident. Last year, you just didn't see that confidence, early on. And when you can get a confident Spencer Rattler, I think there's, the possibilities are set up very nicely. And I think he's got a lot of pieces around him to be really successful. So I think, that first game of the year, I think is going to be huge for us and for him, because I believe he's got all the confidence in the world. He's worked his tail off this year. He really sees, I think, what's in front of him as far as, the NFL and the potential that he has compared to the guys that came out last year, and understanding, he's just as good, or if not better than some of those guys that, first, second round draft picks, and, really seeing what's in front of them. So that's interesting to see. But I think as far as Rattler, I think, this team can go as far as, as he does. And I think it can set up really nicely. But I'm, looking forward to seeing what a fully confident Rattler can do coming into this year with a full understanding really of what's going on, because he was playing on his heels a lot last year. So, giving him a little time to throw the ball, I think, it's set up nicely.
Hey, you know what? JC said it earlier to Phil Steele. List season has come and gone, and he's been left off of pretty much all of them.
Yeah.
Let's not act like he doesn't know about that, because he does. I guarantee you he is well aware of everybody that basically is kind of glancing over him for whatever reasons. They're glancing over him, but we'll find out on September 2nd. So will North Carolina, what he's made of.
Yeah, and I think, you look at what, a lot of people talk about prototypical size of an NFL-style quarterback, and you've really seen that change over the course of the last 2 years with the NFL. And, Spencer's not the biggest guy. He's not the typical 6'3", 6'4", 230, 40-pound quarterback. But you see the NFL with some of the guys that are being drafted early doesn't look into that as much as it was. And I think he sees that as well. Endless possibilities for him this year.
And endless weapons to use. Mike, we'll let you run on that note. Grab your sandwich, and I'll give you a call in a few hours, and we'll talk about the same stuff we just talked about.
Hey, sounds good, guys. I'm looking forward to it this year and enjoying it. Talking football. It's always a good time with that.
Wando's World. Next week we'll have we had created an intro for you, but there were some technical issues, from what I understand, that we'll get fixed. And next week we'll show everybody what you're made of. We'll show them the real 1-9. Hey, who is 19, by the way? JC, do you have the roster pulled up? Who's 19 this year?
It's probably a stallion.
Let's see here.
That's a stallion. Love it.
Let's see. His number, Ben Rollins, 5'9", 160-pound wide receiver out of Chapman High School in Inman, South Carolina. He doesn't have a clue what he has stepped into here.
Be on the lookout.
He's a Wando clone.
Yeah. Well,
Ben
not
Rollins,
really.
A little tough little booger that can make catches in traffic. He's one of many Chapman players that have walked on at Carolina.
Mike, this guy, he's got a long ways to go to ever live up to the legend that was, right?
Oh, man, it's all good.
Yeah. Jungles for life. All right, cool.
Oh, goodness.
All right, man. Thanks, dude. We'll do it again next week.
Enjoy it. Y'all have a good one.
There you go. Michael Flint, former wide receiver at the University of South Carolina and Jungles legend. 5 points. We were all legends. Yeah, that place was a dump. But it was fun, though. All right, we got to hit a timeout. We'll try to get some of the questions in the chat box. I'm going to let Jake give us his predictions this weekend. There are 3 commitments that South Carolina's right in the thick of it with, including one that's happening in less than 6 hours. So we'll get JC's final thoughts on all of that, and then we'll send you on your way here on Inside the Gamecocks, the show painted garnet and black. LetMePaintSomething.com, a couple of painters, LLC.
Hey everybody, this is Mo Copper from Carolina Football. The show is painted garnet black every day by a couple of painters. Go to letmepaintsomething.com to check them out. Go Cox.
10% off for military repeat customers or mention the show. Interior, exterior painting, fencing, cabinet staining, concrete painting, popcorn ceiling removal, and more. 803-522-6832. LetMePaintSomething.com.
If you're in the upstate of South Carolina and are in need of residential real estate services, Cindy Bass, Searfoss of Caldwell Banker Kane is for you. Ask her about the Village at Creekside, all of her listings. In my hometown of Spartanburg, South Carolina, right there on Daniel Morgan Avenue, married to a lifelong Gamecock fan. And many of our listeners have already bought homes from her and been 100% satisfied with the detail and care she uses. Cindy Searfoss, 864-414-5271, Caldwell Banker Kane in the upstate for your real estate needs.
Building your dream home is often just that, a dream, and sometimes a nightmare. But at the Wando Company, they commit to quality and build without sacrifice. Customization, open floor plans, limitless flooring options, maintenance-free and easy installation perks, and affordability are just a few reasons why they've been named one of the best builders in the U.S. Believe in your dreams. Visit thebarndominiumco.com. That's thebarndominiumco.com. The Wando Company, Gamecock owned, Gamecock operated. The preferred sign partner of Gamecock Athletics is Signorama Columbia, and they should be yours too. A full-service sign company that handles design, production, install, and service, Signorama Columbia has helped to bring to life the perfect vision for so many all across South Carolina. Owned and operated by proud Gamecock alumni, they can handle all types of signage, including interior and exterior, vehicle graphics, and more. Go to Signorama.com and find the West Columbia location, or call them at 803-407-9284. Bring your brand to life with Signorama Columbia, and go Gamecocks!
Could use a cigar right now. I'm not these children. If my children turned up missing, it wasn't my fault.
And his G-Wagon. Hey, so I did a couple of things during the break, JC, before you get in here. I did a couple of things during the break. One, I checked out the ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous debate that is happening on the Big Spur right now between Zestos and Bernie's. Oh, everybody, if you were in that debate, quit freaking typing and go grab a sandwich. You don't have to be pissed that somebody likes one over the other one. I like both of them. Guess what I like better on game day? Bernie's. Guess what I like better during the week? Zestos. Who gives a damn? Don't be offended because someone has a different opinion than you. For God's sakes. The other is what the hell happened in the Yankees clubhouse with Domingo Germain, who apparently walked in drunk and started flipping couches. You don't do that in the Yankees organization. They will get rid of you. They will get rid of you.
Excellence up there, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Coach O, I was talking to Phil the other day, and I was like, what if Coach O took over a Popeye's chicken as the manager, right?
Yeah.
Popeye's Louisiana kitchen. And he did that little speech that he did after the Alabama game, and he was like, we're going to beat their ass in the drive-thru. We're going to beat them with sides. We're going to beat them everywhere we see them. 11 herbs and spices. What? Thank you.
Yeah.
And then it's like a documentary, and he shows him tackling the Chick-fil-A cow, like full speed. And then he's like, well, I turned over a new leaf, and later I apologized to that cow for knocking him down. But Chick-fil-A started some shit with me, and I wanted to end it. Welcome to Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen. Can I take your order? That's a 5-piece with a biscuit. You want the dirty rice with the slaw? Dirty rice, good.
Dirty rice.
I need 5 cups of average jambalaya pronto.
By the way,
they'd have to expand the menu.
The breaking news from Pete Thamel.
I wanted to
ago. The Big Ten is expected to move ahead with a formal offer to both Oregon and Washington. And guys, that will probably mean Arizona departs for the Big 12, meaning that Pac-12 is more than likely done. As we
Poor Washington State, now Oregon State are just sitting there like the guys playing the violin on the Titanic.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously.
Rearranging
and there's something heartbreaking about this from a Washington State fan on Reddit, and they tweeted it out. That program, I've been to Pullman before, visited. Unfortunately, Coach Leach wasn't there. It was during his tenure, though, and I met with the staff. That is a very prideful institution. They've been good at football. They have a tradition. They've been to Rose Bowls, not all the time. It's not the best job in the country, but they win. And look, they're going to the Mountain West now. I mean,
yeah.
And Oregon State, I mean, you got to feel, I mean, if you're Oregon State, by the way, has a Nike contract, I would tell them to shove that in their patoot. I would have nothing to do with Nike. They probably can't because Nike probably gives them money too.
I don't know.
My in-state rival just left me in a lurch.
Nike doesn't give out a ton of money, JC.
Oh, really?
Actually,
they don't?
No, I mean, when you actually go look at the contracts that they have, Under Armour actually pays more cash than Nike does.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah, because they got everybody, but
yeah,
they put a lot of money in the University of Oregon. I mean, let's be clear there. That deal's good.
Oh no, yeah, so, on that front, yeah.
And look, Stanford and Cal, you reap what you sow. I mean, you've kind of piloted this whole Pac-12 thing into the ditch based on academics and things that don't matter, and trusted the wrong people. So I don't feel bad for you. I feel bad for Oregon State and Washington State, though, the working folk. they're both blue-collar schools, and they're passionate fans, Beaver fans and Cougar fans. I mean, it's just that sucks. And I think, really, guys, for the first time, we're seeing sort of a demotion in college football. Because if this thing falls apart, I mean, Oregon State, Washington State have been safely Power 5 for decades. Well, now they're not.
Guys.
That's the first time I've seen that. Is our schools dropping down a level? You know what I'm saying?
What are you going to have left here, guys? You're going to have. If Arizona, it's a foregone conclusion at this point now, right? That Arizona is going to head to the Big 12. All right, so if that happens, are we assuming here that Utah and Arizona State are following?
Mm-hmm. And they're going to make Arizona. The state of Arizona will make Arizona State. Utah, they don't want to go to the Big 12 because BYU's in the Big 12, and they fought it, but
they don't have a choice.
They have smart leadership at Utah. They're not going to get left in this league.
No,
I mean,
they're not going to have a choice.
They're going to follow and figure out the BYU thing later. And I mean, that rivalry between BYU and Utah is really good. The Holy War.
So you're going to have,
make it a conference game.
So you're going to have 4 teams left: Cal, Oregon State, Stanford, and Washington State.
It's over.
I mean,
if I'm Cal and Stanford, are you calling up the ACC? If you're those 4 schools, you're calling up the ACC and saying, let's make the bi-coastal conference? I don't know that they move the needle that much. Those 4 don't move the needle that much.
I agree with you. I have never, for whatever reason, a lot of the national media has been infatuated with Stanford over the years. I can't stand watching them play anything. Like, I don't know of anybody that actually does watch Stanford. Like, and I mean that not disrespectfully. I just think a lot of the country doesn't like them. So
no, I mean, you figured like because they're a private university, you're like, well, maybe they'll just go independent, but they don't have enough viewership to strike a deal like Notre Dame does with NBC or something like that.
Not at all.
Nobody who would
absolutely.
I
totally agree.
Sports will carry it, but JB refuses to call your baseball games.
Yeah, I mean the only school with Notre Dame reach is BYU. BYU
Joe Dierte.
Because it's the Latter Day, it's the LDS Church. You know? So every Mormon loves BYU, every Catholic and then some supposed to love Notre Dame, I guess. Although
I you know what, of those four that are left, guys, I think the one just from a football standpoint here, strictly from a football standpoint, the one program that like, let's say all four are good and they're all four on national TV. You know which one I'm watching over the other three? Washington State. Because I enjoy seeing that environment. It is, like you said, JC, it is a bunch of blue collar out in the middle of nowhere people. What do they fit in that ballpark? 40,000 people, maybe, if
about
that.
40,000, but it's packed every time. Yeah.
But it's packed.
And look, it is a different place. I mean, people don't realize this. I think they do now because that crazy killer, the guy that's on trial for the murder of the University of Idaho students, like he was a Washington State grad student. People don't realize like Pullman, Washington's on the border of Idaho. We drove from a bunch of us, like it was me, Charles Power, Keith Niebuhr, right before the opening on 4th of July. We had an extra day in Seattle, so we're like, let's drive out to Washington State. And you go through it and you don't realize this. You know, the calendars with the big sunflowers and the fields and stuff, that's where they shoot that, is in eastern Washington.
Right.
We're rolling through. There's these beautiful sunflowers and stuff everywhere and these big fields and these people with cameras trouncing through, taking shots. It's a beautiful drive. And then you get to Pullman, and then Idaho is right there. And crazy enough, the University of Idaho in Moscow, Idaho, is it's like going from Columbia to Casey almost. And so the location is remote. But man, I mean, you're talking about Ryan Leaf, Drew Bledsoe went to Washington State. Mike Price coached there and was good. Dennis Erickson got his start there. Basketball, Tony Bennett, before he went to Virginia, was at Wazoo. And it's in the movie Volunteers with John Candy and Tom Hanks. Tommy from Tacoma or whatever.
That's the deal.
Or Ted from Tacoma. No, and like when the Cambodian army or whatever kidnapped John Candy, they're rolling around in the military vehicle singing the Washington State fight song. Fight, fight, fight for Washington State. Cheer on the scarlet and gray. You know, Tom Tuttle from Tacoma.
Do y'all think
Tommy Tuttle from Tacoma?
Do y'all think there's any chance that those four programs get invited to the Big 10 or the Big 12?
No,
I don't either.
There's no value in it.
I agree. I think there's value in Stanford, but I don't think it's moved. I don't think it's moved the needle value.
Let me back up. Stanford and Cal, yes. Oregon State, Washington State.
Do they join the Mountain West? Hey, the Mountain West. I like the Mountain West. I've always liked it. Yeah. I think it's a neat league. It's a good league too. Fresno's had their years. We know what Boise does there. They fit right in. Go Wyoming.
Or if you're the Pac-12, do you try to survive? Now you can try to survive this.
Do you merge with the Mountain West?
And take all the flagship schools from them? I mean, the only one I wouldn't. I don't know if they'd be a fit would be Air Force, just because of the uniqueness of a service academy. But heck, the Navy's in the American now. I mean, they're in a league. But I'd go Colorado. I'd take Colorado State, Boise, and see. And what you do is you kind of hedge on the future, because the state of Idaho is one of the fastest growing states in the country, population wise. And I just told you where the University of Idaho is located. It's way up in nowhere. Boise State's basically the state university there. I mean, and so you got that's going to grow. UNLV is located in a growth spot and a good TV market. I mean, you just try to do what you can to survive. Now,
I don't know if there's
are the rest of the Power 5 schools going to be like, oh yeah, you're still a Power 5 conference, Pac-12? No. I don't know.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't think there's. there's not enough there to. I mean, you would be better off trying to come up with a merger, and maybe it's the Mountain West.
Maybe you join the American. I don't know. Since everybody's going coast to coast now, it's just those schools. And I've, like I said, I've been to Corvallis and Pullman, and man, Corvallis, they won a national title in baseball. Their baseball stadium, you could tell like they didn't plan on being that good. It's like an erector set. They got like temporary bleachers and stuff all over the place. And it's crazy. Now, they may have changed it. I hadn't been. I went out there in 2009, so it's been a while, 14 years. But they don't have very big stadiums. They they're not huge fan bases, and they're in small towns and in areas of states that don't have a lot of population. In that, I mean, Oregon and Oregon State both are not in Portland. They're both kind of 20 minutes from each other, down kind of in the middle of the state toward the coast. So Wales, no, you're right on it. We just talked about it. Jamie brought it up. Oregon. Wow. By the way, if you're just tuning in, Oregon and Washington now to the Big Ten. That's probably it's pretty much the death knell for the
have to be.
Oh, it's over.
You can't. Well, it's funny. I read a column in the LA Times from some Trojan writer, and they were like, "Ooh, Southern Cal's going to be so mad that Oregon is now coming, bro." Why, bro? I mean, apparently Oregon just pisses them off, and like, "Oh, no, not the Ducks." Like, no, whoa, bro, nah. Anyway,
well, I mean, the only way that the Pac-12 survives is if they can prevent Arizona State, and Utah from leaving. And if they can do that, then between those three that'd be seven. Yeah. That's seven that's left. And you invite probably Boise. If you can get
San Diego State in there. I think UNLV, Wyoming, Colorado State.
So what would be the flagship institution of the league? Utah. I guess Utah would be. Yeah. Wow.
But you got to figure, I mean, with these,
or Cal.
Next thing we're going to hear is Notre Dame joins Pac-12.
Yeah, dude.
Notre Dame.
Yeah. Notre Dame.
Notre Dame joined baseball. Here's how the SEC counters.
They're going to do everything they can to be the conference that doesn't disappear. Because with this last move here, with Washington and Oregon going to the Big Ten, there is a conference that will not exist. And you're either going to be shrewd and make all the moves, to try to eat the Mountain West, which if you're going to go regionally makes the most sense. And then that conference would disappear and they'll have to get absorbed into, some of the smaller ones or you're done.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. I don't know, man. I think the conference may just fold.
Yeah, and they may just, because what do you have? It stinks because there's no TV rights deal. That's it. It's all.
It's crazy. I mean, they sat there and pushed. I'm shocked because I didn't think it could get. I didn't think it could get more incompetent than Larry Scott, the tennis guy that they hired to screw this whole thing up to begin with. I didn't think they could get more incompetent. And I liked like Kolovkov or whatever his name's background. He's kind of a different guy, but
maybe this is his plan.
This is terrible. I mean, it's like you wait all this time, you allow all the speculation to happen, and then you're publicly saying, I think everybody's going to be really happy with this deal. And it comes in no linear TV, which is already a challenge for your league nationally because nobody on the East Coast watches it. But it's just streaming on Apple, which does a good job of Major League Baseball, by the way. And they will be a player sooner rather than later, but it's just Apple. And then it's like, it's not going to be more than 20 million each unless you can sell some more subscriptions. I just, meanwhile, the Big 12 signed their deal with Fox and ESPN. It's 37 million. And they've got guarantees from ESPN. If they add schools, those new schools will get their full share. Why would you not go?
Right.
And especially if you're Arizona and like Arizona cares about basketball a lot. Arizona is now joining a league with Kansas, Cincinnati, Houston is a powerhouse in basketball, Iowa State, Texas. I mean, not Texas anymore. Baylor. Baylor won the national championship a couple of years ago in hoops. That's the best hoops conference in America by a mile, if you think about it.
Yeah,
with Arizona going in. So, I mean, I don't know.
I'll tell you this. I think that, if Oregon and Washington can keep it together where they are players, Oregon gets back to the Oregon that we had kind of gotten adjusted to. The Big Ten is going to have a legitimate. They have the potential to be the brand of college football. They've got the potential with Southern Cal and Oregon and Michigan and Ohio State and Penn State kind of being their flag bearers when it comes to the sport of football. They have a case. They have a case. Now, the SEC, of course, has a legitimate case as well with Alabama, LSU, Georgia, and then you bring Texas and Oklahoma, who have literally the same type of ordeal as kind of the flag bearers for the league as well. These guys, this is going to be a masterful thing to watch in the coming years. The SEC more than likely won't make any changes, and they'll just wait and see what happens.
Oh, was not at anything. Just like,
yeah. Well, hey,
hey, you want to watch us make more money? We're going to play 9 games in 2 years.
Hey, how about this?
We don't even have to add.
How about this? What has Greg Sankey said in the last week? Not a damn thing.
That's it. It's like you're not hearing anything.
That right there should scare the daylights out of the rest of the college football world if he hasn't said a word. I'm telling you, that's when he makes his move. He's silent but deadly.
Yeah,
you can take that
when you least expect it. Next thing you know, there's SEC news. But
I'll remind everyone.
I'm like, just don't do anything. Just sit right where you are and be like, don't need to.
I'll remind everyone the state of Indiana is a contiguous state to the SEC. They share a long, long border with Kentucky.
Well, it's interesting you'd bring that state up,
Is it, Phil? I think so, too. And there's a reason I'm probably talking in this accent right now.
Right, yeah.
It's the Blarney Stone, will you? Gotta go pour me a tall Guinness.
JC,
Jonathan Paylor, I think, is going to NC State, Bruin. That's
what I was about to ask you. Paylor, you've got going NC State. Quarterback, 2035 quarterback Landon Duckworth is going to where?
I think he's South Carolina. I think he's going to be an early commit. He's good, too.
Then we watch him for 3 years. Yeah, okay. I'll be dead.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know about that kind of – yeah, and then Solomon, I think Gamecocks for him, too.
So Carolina goes 2 for 3 this weekend. That's what you're saying.
That's my guess. And look, Paylor's telling different people different things. And whenever that happens, you at least have, sort of a shot. But the people in the know believe it's NC State. So that's the deal there.
Thanks to Michael Flint and the great Phil Steele for joining us today on our program, and to everybody else that was with us this week. If you haven't downloaded the app, you should. All of you have a homework assignment this weekend. Make sure that you tell somebody about the app. You can hit the little 3 lines in the upper right-hand corner of it, and you can share it with a friend as well. It's very easy. You just click that, copy the link, and share it. Please do that for us. We'd really appreciate it. We'll be back on Monday. John Whittle will be with us on Monday. We also start our all-new segment, Talking Ball, with Pat DeMarco, coming up on Monday morning here on Inside the Gamecocks. The shows get you ready for college football season and the Gamecocks. Thanks to Phil and JC and all of you. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, and we'll see you here from the Sonorama Studios Inside the Gamecocks, the show built by the Wando Co. and part of the Chief Sports Network.